Okay, yoga time. So we have a bolster in center of our mat, 2 blankets at the back or towels, and a block right in front of the bolster. So go ahead and sit up on the bolster, and then I think I will start this way. We're going to stretch the legs forward, so the block is kind of in the way. It's a little bit of an interruption, but imagine you've never really done the forward bend with a block this position under in front of your bolster. So it's kind of it's a good. Let's just try this. So we'll take our belt. I already have mine buckled up for some reason, not sure, but unbuckle. Bring your arms overhead to stretch out your shoulders, your chest, the kind of your upper vest. That's kind of what it is, your upper vest. So it's investing in the breathing muscles here. Okay, now the feet are kind of feeling like they got to stretch the toes out for some reason. But when I move my waist forward, I want you to, of course your spine might round a little bit, but lift up the arms and take the belt, bending your knees as much as you need to. Round your feet. Your feet aren't round, but over the feet around them. And then when you pull with the belt, you're going to come kind of back uprightness. So you're not uptight, right? You're upright, so you're lifting. And then as you pull on the belt, so you get that process of sensation in the legs, maybe it's not so much the feet, but I want you to actually lean forward so you kind of feel your rear kind of pushing back, like when you push your tail back. And then as you round a little bit, but I want you to work more on that extension versus round. So you're pulling, and I'm going to have my elbows by my side so I can actually process that stretch of my feet and my legs. So instead of walking your hands to your feet, I want you to try to keep the elbows bending as if you're kind of doing a little workout with your arms, kind of like you're starting to do a row, right? But you probably don't have your weights right there. So pull, okay? And then walk the hands as far down the belt towards your feet as you can and pull a little bit further. This might process a little bit of sensation of forward, which can mean rounding. But I want you to still work on the best that your knowledge of lifting out of the back. But work to stretch the legs so you're feeling the upper body move forward for the sensation of the legs. Great. Do it so that you feel it. And then as you slide your hands on the belt, just slide the belt off your feet. And then we're going to take the belt. This is why we need it buckled. We're going to reach it, bend the knees, perk them up, and then slide the belt around the upper back of the leg, so close to the buttocks. And then you're going to buckle up. You're going to cinch the belt up so much. Loud noises, I know. Cinch it up so that it's at the top of the thighs. Okay, this is going to be interesting. So the legs have that kind of full blood flow from the last position, but it goes away pretty quick, doesn't it? It's like suddenly I don't feel my legs stretched there anymore. So you scoot your seat on the block, and then make sure you got enough space in front of you. Okay. And then you're going to lower onto your back. So I got my belt at the very top of my thighs. I'm going to scoot my hips a little bit down so I'm closer onto that block with my kind of tailbone area. And then as I lower my head back to my blankets, then you'll add your sand. And, you know, even though this may not sense direction of upper body, because it is kind of a mid-frame sensation, you might add your sand again to the legs, because that seems to be helpful here for grounding, and then separate the feet so that it's safe for your knees. Now, if your feet turn out a little bit, that's okay. You know, let them be natural how they want to be, but stretch open the chest by moving your arms out, relax them on the ground, and then you can always nudge that blanket in so it feels like it's just above the shoulders, right? It's still under your head, of course. Your head's not on the other side. Please don't let that happen to your neck. And the arms, when they're open, begin the process of centering our shoulders and the openness of the chest. So as the breath focus starts to be emphasized because of the stillness of our shape, and where else do we bring our awareness to? It's a good time to dedicate your focus to breathing, even if that's the main emphasis of mind. And maybe the eyes close and the shoulders, they just settle back. In fact, if you try to effort the shoulders, it may reduce your ability to kind of release the tension. So just notice that. I mean, we have a great opportunity to use both the bolster and the block to help keep a lift of our back. And then with the back kind of being nudged up, the chest opens. So the shoulders can center back. And maybe that doesn't make a lot of sense, but I know I do emphasize sometimes moving the shoulders back, and that makes you your muscles engage. So see if you can let the body just kind of just be at ease. Hopefully a cat won't come sit on you. All right, that would be your other sandbag, huh? So take an inhale for a full 4 to 5 counts. If the belly moves, great. If it's just the ribs, try to get the belly to move too. And then as you exhale, feel it come back to center, releasing. Alternate the in and out breath. Breathe out through the mouth. Now just trusting that all the props, even the belt, is helping you situate the support. And so that way you can release holding patterns. That may be one idea behind support in poses. So let that be one kind of intention today, is support and releasing holding patterns. Seems kind of technical and bland, but we got to have something. Okay. Now remove the sand and the cat. And then when you slide your feet towards your seat, I know you got a belt on, but notice, when that belt is there, when it's no longer really engaging the quad structure as much, get a feel for the tilt of the pelvis, right? It probably expresses more back arch when you have this around your legs. So when you unbuckle, kind of immediately go towards moving your right knee towards your chest, and just feel the left foot push down, that circulation kind of branch through the left thigh, and then lower the right foot and change. So you'll switch the legs. Obviously you have 2 to choose from. So it's quite simple, but sometimes when you recognize the 2 sides and you play with the movements out of the pose, you can feel where you support your balance, right? So now when my left leg goes in, my right foot and right side of the body support that movement. So give it a few more moments, not focusing on how many, but the moments, whether you go really slow and studious or you want the exercise. So next time you come up with the knee, let's give this a try. This is, going to be quite the breath strengthener. Even though it looks like a back strength too, you'll bring both knees up. So you now have a block, a bolster. This is quite unusual, but if you ever do legs up the wall with the block on the other side of the bolster, it's this exact thing. So you'll stretch both legs up minus any sand or any belt or anything. Your tailbone might feel really heavy at this point, like you can feel it like a knob, especially if it's on the block. This will be just about 10 more seconds. So feel what works in your shoulders, just letting them relax back. And so rather than kind of fight against it, because it is an inversion, gravity has you here in your tailbone. And then take another breath. So maybe we're in 10 more seconds or 100 more. Inhale so that you have to strengthen your breathing muscles when your legs are tilted this way. And maybe a little bit of powering through the upper lungs. Your only requirement is to breathe. And then as you bend through the legs, you bend through hip, through knee, and then as you lower down, I want you to step the feet enough apart that you can kind of wag your tail a little bit, and then lift up your hips a tad and move your block back overhead. Okay, the one that was underneath your tail. And then as you move, if you got a belt, lower below you, you'll be sliding it away. I don't think it will be helpful. But feel how this natural arch is with the bolster now. It's quite prominent here in the ribs. But I really encourage you to get your shoulders to release back. Okay? And now, as you roll to the left, like you're trying to be a very sophisticated sleeper, you're rolling to the left to reach through that right arm, little cat stretch, and then come kind of up to your seated position, not on the bolster, but in front. And let's move our position to side cinch. Whether you have a belt there, just kind of shift it aside. And then I'm going to set up so I have a ball. So I want to use the ball on the inside of the right leg. It could be around the knee, it could be inner thigh. I see some people put it a little bit below the knee and then they kind of roll back. So I would just kind of sort out what feels like your hip doesn't have any pressure, but it just supported. So if I have my knee down on the ground, it presses into my hip a bit. So now I have a little lift and I'm going to move the left leg close to the bolster and then get my sand somewhere back there. Okay. Place it on hip or on waist, whichever you feel, and you can always change it. So you could begin to lean into the props and ensure that you're supported. So if your head is tilting quite a bit and it feels like you have more shoulder strain, then sometimes getting your brain a little bit higher might help out with this balance of neck and shoulder. Okay, you can always try it. It'll make it easier probably. So my sand is on side. My right arm can either open or you could reach it so it extends over, whether it touches the block or not. It's probably not helpful to think you have to touch your block because that may make unnecessary strain on the shoulder. So I would just sort out the movement with the right arm. And then you can only focus on the rib breathing for this one. Right? It's really where you can experience breathing movement. So feel the right arm. If you touch to the block, you decide to go back up. Sometimes having a block is balancing. It feels centering, like still. Make sure the block is as high as you need it. I'm going to go mid-high. That feels very soothing for my shoulder. So I can kind of lower the hand down. And then the arm piece, the circulation and blood flow funnels through the arm and the upper back. Just on the right side, but the left side can feel that impression. Okay, so costal breathing, great. Good. And if you have that sand kind of in the mid-range and you decide you want to move it lower or higher, you give yourself that option. Sometimes you'll move it up like that, and the arm will reach and it'll stay. And sometimes it has a cycle of its own of movement with the breath. Give some moments of eyes relaxed and feel where the breath moves in the body. And now when we shift, I'm going to give you just an instruction, kind of a mental expectation that's helpful to what to expect. We're going to be moving in towards Supta Baddha Konasana. So that's going to be a little bit of a pathway in between these side sages. But let the body rebound a bit. So let the right arm move away from the block. Open the chest. Maybe you move your chest open to the ceiling. Maybe you roll your head so you're in the back of the head on the blanket. Great. And then as you pretty much have to go back to the left, unless you have superpowers. You go right and come up. But you'll shift down to that left hip. You can always let the sand just slide away. And then when you come up, let's take our blanket that's on the top away, move the ball, and then turn the bolster up on top of that blanket so it's tilted. Now the bottom blanket, get your block. Let's go flat with it. I know we tend to have it rolled up, but our body's warmed up a tiny bit, so we should be okay. So our blanket goes atop, turn to the front. Okay, we're actually going to do a mini boat moment here before we get too much into that bound angle. So take your belt. Well, let's see. Yeah, okay, go ahead, and I'm already on the path to buckle it up, so might as well do it. So buckle it up so you got a big loop. Okay. This will be where we go. Bring it over the overhead around the waist. Yep, we'll go this way. And then we'll take our feet into the belt. We had our feet and the belt just moments ago in the beginning. So what I'm going to set up for is my blocks to the sides of my knees, because that's where they end up eventually, below that layer, the thigh and knee. And then as my belt is pretty high, if it doesn't feel okay under your armpit area, you could have it around your shoulders like this. Right? Some people will go that way if it's uncomfortable. So I get it pretty high up. And then as I lift up my legs, it's a different balance than when we're sitting on the bolster with the feet, right? It's not as critical leg pulling, right? Because it's moving in the core body. So feeling that, core equilibrium, you could say, here with the movement back. And if the spine is centering and the feet are in that lift, there's no up and down, straight up and down, you're in balance. So it's kind of in the middle of that, isn't it? You have to tilt a little bit back to get the legs to kind of ripen up. And the arms could be passive. You could have them reaching forward if you feel like being a little more interactive with it, but it's okay if they're down by the sides and you're focusing on pushing into your belt with your feet, because this is where you'll receive that circulation boost kind of in not necessarily the front core, but in the side of the core muscles. Yeah, and a little challenge is always good, right? When you let the feet lower a little bit. Right? Even if you find, I get a little jolty with my shoulders. So use that belt strong around your back as if it's kind of pulling the shoulder blades around. It can be pretty deep pull into the back. And so if I push my arms forward, then it tightens them again, the shoulders. So maybe passive arms is a good one today to stretch your back. Okay, now, rather than any rounding of the neck or forward scooping, okay, we're not doing any bird poses, so we're not going to round through that top position like heron pose. And then bend your legs so that you feel when the knees hinge that you can push into your feet so it kind of pulls that connective tissue in the back. Okay, now grab the belt, lower the feet, lift the belt over the knees, and the knees move open. Okay, so take the belt buckle part so that you can slide, unless you already have it perfectly by your hip, you might. And then tighten it down. And I would make sure it's really low on your back and get those blocks in like right away. So you're not straining in your flexors here. So be generous with your block height, even if it feels too easy for you. Some days maybe it's better that you let it be too easy. So my feet are the soles are together. They're so glad not to be rubbing against each other right now, the inside of the big toes. So when you lower down, you can have sand on your legs. If you have two, you can have sand on your ribs if you want to use one. So when I descend, my knees, well, actually the legs don't feel a whole lot of pressure, even though they're receiving a bit of circulation. But as you lower down, have that sand for this time across the rib intersection. And when the sand is kind of, well, I mean, we know it's not necessarily on the lobes of the lungs, but I think of the sand rig as kind of a low sand lobe. And then as you lower down the arms, feel that they're close, but they're not making you tighten your shoulders. So then again, it's like, well, how can I surrender my body, just my weight into the props? It's like that. We center our weight on the props and then we wait, right, for circulation to occur from the breathing. Just let your body feel the breath and the emptying of the lungs. If you need to adjust the blanket under your head, make it higher or anything, personalize so you can process the pose. With the shoulders beginning to create some motion, I want you to keep the sand there if you can. If you need to remove it, remove it. But as your shoulders are back, can you stretch your arms back? Now, this is tricky because the shoulders have the information, they're going towards the floor. But if my arms move back, there's kind of tendrils of the shoulders, the muscles activate. So can you bring your hands around to your elbows? I mean, if the sand isn't making this just unapproachable for your breathing, then you just slide it off, no big deal. Yeah, I like to work with the strength of the breathing muscles as often as possible, just to tune them up. They don't get that pressure during the day. For me, I don't work out to pressurize my lungs. So to me, this is a good vascular event. Okay. So when you hold onto your elbows, feel that intrinsic grip. It's more than intrinsic, isn't it? It's pretty visceral with the hands. And then change the arm crossing. Now, of course, the shoulders will respond different on each side, but again, your work is on releasing back. Just going back, breathing slow, ribs expand and contract. Okay, now release the grip, remove the sand, cross the right arm, specifically across the upper chest, the collarbone area, left hand to right elbow, press. Okay, so I'm pressing across, right? I'm trying to get that arm to move across. You're gonna see this familiar shape when we work on the hip. We do this all the time. We cross the foot to the knee and then we pull across, same thing. Just feels, I don't know, it's a little more personal with the shoulder, I think, for this direction. But that's just my experience. Okay, now switch the crossing. And you can do any movements that you want in between or keep it pretty plain and focused. That's good too. And likely there's subtle differences from shoulder to shoulder. Even maybe the collarbone has a different pressure, or the neck connection on this left side. Give it just a few more breaths. Notice where that left shoulder is reaching. It's the deltoid you're stretching. And then as you release, unbuckle, and then go immediately into this pattern of left knee points up, bottom of the foot down, and then use your core, as much as you can think of this core space, as helping you get that right foot up and over to the left knee. Now, I usually scoot my hip a little down, like I can feel my spine shift, just probably very small, not even a full inch, but it does shift to accommodate this knee position, so it's open. And then get your ball. Well, that will require a whole round of movement. Place it to the outer left upper thigh and tilt the body weight to hold the right knee. So same as we did with the arm, right? Now with the knee. We did that kind of with the elbow. Knees and elbows, they have something in common on this short little piece. So it might feel like the hip is stretching, the glute. So give yourself an opportunity to just absorb that sensation. Breathing slow. Feeling into that right upper leg. And it's not like you could pull the leg in and circle it around right now. It's pretty much decided because your back is lifted that you can only use this little part of it to stretch. So, you're isolating the focus here. So the back really just rests on the bolster. You don't want to try to lift up your shoulders or anything, just let them go back. And then when you switch your knees back center, you move the ball over to the right outer upper thigh, right foot down. And immediately I kind of put my weight a little bit towards the ball, left foot to the right knee, shift the body weight, great. If your block is in the way, I don't think it's a great thing to have a block holding you up on this one. You might avoid that so you can work with the balance, right? The coordination. Now I got my left knee it's kind of resting out, but we do want to offer holding on to that knee with the right hand. But if you for some reason one side you notice that feels good to not hold on to it, of course, try that. You're on the outside of your right foot, you're not on the bottom of the foot. And the left arm can be passive. If you want to reach it back, go for it. If it's okay relaxing down, that's fine. And just center the momentum. So you're holding onto that left knee and your emphasis as it goes across. Kind of remember when you were holding onto your left elbow, you were motioning it across. You can always kind of repeat that for a mini moment and kind of guide the sensations in your back. Breathing slow. These may be your slowest important moments today. Now, before you exit this one to get to the next sage pose, this left hip is going to kind of go wildly different in just a moment. So you can feel how your hip is processing this decision right here, crossing the leg to the right. And then the nice thing about the practice, I try to make it so we're really lubricating around the joints, we're getting some nice hydration in these areas. So when you release the grip of the hand to the knee, take the ball away, it still stays with you though, right? So you're gonna roll your body weight to the right hip. And then as you come up, you'll move your bolster, turn it, to that horizontal, and then your blanket stack. I now know that I usually use the top one a little bit higher, so might as well already prepare myself. Block on the other side of the blankets, and then off we go, but we've got to get our ball. If you have a ball, use that on the inside of the left knee. If you don't have a ball, you could use a block. Okay, that works really rather well for this one. And then the sand. Now, who knows, maybe the second side, your ribs are turned a little further in 1 degree, but you want to emphasize, where does it feel when you have that sand on, you know, that it's supporting your capacity to breathe comfortably. So if it's so high up and I kind of struggle with the inhale, then I just slide it down. I take my time, and maybe I don't get the sand high this side today, but that's okay. I just don't want to feel like I'm being, you know, kind of squashed with my breathing cycle. So it can just basically cycle. Breath cycles, doesn't it? Cyclone breath. Okay, rest your eyes. No extra special requests here. Breathing slow. And feel that you rest your body weight into that right side. Now feel how the coordination is of the arm that's underneath, right? It kind of slides through the space between the props. So it's a pretty great position for your right shoulder blade. And the left one, oh, it's not quite as easy, right? Because it has to gain flexibility to be here. This requires flexibility. Just get your arm up this way. And if it's tough for you, I regularly see people that the arm cannot really even go up above a shoulder. That's it. It's stuck. It's very inflexible or injured. So just notice that's pretty good just to get it to reach. And if you have complicated sensations, then honor moving out of it when you need, like opening the left arm, like the wing moves open. Yeah. So keeping that range of motion is important, even if you just kind of flap your wings and then let them hold for a while, like these poses. Okay, now lower the left arm and then slide the sand. And we're going to kind of approach movement here where we rotate to the right and we take the bolster to the side for the moment. Slide your blankets in, toss one off, and then take a all fours position. So we'll stretch our shoulders here. So what we'll do is you'll move your blocks kind of up to the front area. They don't have to be perfect, but I'm moving mine over here just so you can see what I'm doing. So yours will probably be one on each side of your mat. That's how your blocks will be. And then let's take a kneeling position with the blanket underneath. And then I want you to stretch your right arm straight in front. It doesn't have to be in the middle of the mat. It could be like straight forward out of the shoulder. And then you'll weave the left arm under that right arm And then let your body, your head lower down towards the ground. So if it touches down, great. If it's a little bit up and your head is resting into your right arm, that's okay. Okay, if that's really awkward for you and you're feeling like I want to do this, but it's too much, you can put a block or the other blanket under your head. This can be nice too. But if you're already getting into that full stretch, just go with it. No, it's temporary, but it's still fairly focused into that deltoid on the left arm, isn't it? Yeah, so take another breath, just one more. And slide the right hand in, and then bring the left arm forward. Remember, it can be kind of middle of the mat or straight in front of your left shoulder when you're on all fours. Weave the right arm under towards the left side, and then let your head lower down. And if you notice that the left shoulder kind of gets a little, it kind of tweaks itself and you can notice it shifts, then that's okay, but we're not trying to pop things. So if you start feeling a lot of that going on, then back up and don't force your armpit so far down. This is just, it can be surprising that you can be restricted on this one after all you've done, huh? So many parts in these upper body pieces, right? So many inflexible parts. Okay, now when I slide the left hand in and I bring the hands right underneath the shoulders, we're going to round our back into cat pose, so chin to chest. Inhale, arch the spine. So just cat-cow, simple, simple. Feel the movement track of the back. And elongate that track. So when the chest moves forwards, the eyes lift, the head lifts, the tail lifts, and then we round the back, chin towards chest. Okay, next time you arch, okay, I want you to bring the hands so the palms are going to turn, the fingers are going to turn out, and you're going to walk the hands to the edge of your mat and lean forward so your hips move down. Okay, so get a feel of the pressure of your hands, the arch of the spine, the lift of your head. Just let the waist stretch. Okay, and be careful of your upper, back if it feels pressure, and sometimes a low back here. So when I come back to table, stretch your hips as far back as they'll go, as if they're aiming towards your feet. Your hands could change so they're more comfortable. Forehead down. And then as you come up to table, you're going to round your back. So you're kind of pretending to go to table, but you're working your way through the ranks of the ribs. We'll call this rib ranking. So lifting the chest, great. Feel the circulation through the spine. And then move your head down. And it just kind of glides with the movement of the arms and the hips, doesn't it? Give yourself a few more of these at your own pace, but let your body glide with the movement of the hips. So there's really no actual specific aim, is there? It's just hydrating the back. Yeah, if you get too serious about it, it's absolutely zero enjoyment. So just go slow and inhale. You might not even lift your head very high. You might just let your head nod side to side, and then just get a feel of movement through the upper back. Okay, let's add the lower. So I want you to set yourself front into the crawl space, into the crawl shape. And add your blocks. I would just put them under your hands at the mid-height, because why not use the help? And then the knees will go together. I like to balance the sacrum area before stepping from it. So, how do you step into the feet? That could be just conversation about this pattern, but let's just step the right foot front, then move through that knee lunge. My knee's a little bit over the toes right now. But I want you to get a feel of that stretch to the back thigh so that you really are approaching that lunge. Okay. And then reverse the lunge with your knee on the blanket. So you're gonna lift the right foot, so the toes lift up like so, you're flexing, and your hands on the blocks, the head lowers down. Yeah, finally we hit that hamstring, huh? And then reach back to that low lunge. So you're on the blanket with the knee, the chest can now move up, and then tilt down and shift the right foot, flex the foot, head down. Inhale forward, lunging. Exhale back and really work the leg parts here. So I know if I was on more of a standing kind of higher lunge, you would be coordinating so much with your, balancing the muscles that you might not feel the depth of the circulation in these two areas. So you could slow it down more than I am, but when you go forward to the lunge, feel the left thigh stretch the front, really feel where that is pulling from the knee up into the hip. Okay, and then when you lean back, feel the right leg and the sitting bone reaching back. You kind of have to have both sitting bones, I notice it reaching back, but you really are aiming on the right side. Okay, now lower down, the right foot, lift up the back knee and turn to your left so you're in a wide stance. Okay, we've been here, been a while though. So you have a wide stance and the feet really are, they could be forward, parallel, they could be toes in. Those are both correct. But as long as you have bare feet, this one is kind of important, you feel the stickiness and that you don't slide away, because that resistance will help stretch the legs. So you can do two versions here. We'll do one of the two. Okay, you can have your blocks farther forward and move your hips back, just like you were doing when we were going forward and back, but your head is between the arms. Okay, you can hold the legs as well. Second option, elbows out, head down. You might like this one if you like inversions, if you have a special affinity to these in this moment. But the other one is nice for the shoulders too, this stretch. So you could do, I guess, a little of each, of course, but kind of swim around with this movement in your shoulders and try to get the thigh muscles so that you get a feel that they're kind of pulling up the quadriceps a little bit. Even if you're holding the legs, you're trying to keep the front of the thighs alive, not collapsing. And even if that's to bend the knees a little bit, maybe that's better for you than trying to pull up your quadriceps. Okay, take a few moments here with your head down or your chest stretching down. One of these two, but the head is definitely down. The brain is down. And if this whole scenario of the inversion is just not working, you can always turn back to the right foot and step back into child's pose. Okay, and those of you that are holding onto the legs, you're closer to like a headstand version of things, aren't you? Feel the elbows move out and that brings the head farther down. Okay, so you're getting more circulation to the brain. Great, now come back forward, get some blocks, turn to your right foot, and then once that foot is turned completely front, you're going to stretch the left calf out a little bit. So what I would work with here is moving the left heel, and so the legs are on two different tracks. The right foot, is parallel, left foot as well. If you can make it parallel, it's okay if it doesn't stay particularly all facing forward on the left foot. The toes might turn a little bit out, but stretch the calf. Oh, I really enjoy getting good calf stretches. So you might have the right knee bending a little bit, maybe not. Some of us will push back and have more of a straight leg, bring our blocks up and feel more in the calf this way. Some will like to bend the knee The right knee, not the left knee. That leg should be pretty straight to get the calf. Breathing slow. Exhaling completely. Okay, I hope you got that calf stretched out a little bit. Okay, let's step the left foot forwards and then the right leg back. This side, I think we're going to start with the calf. Okay, so since we're already upright and with the leg, so it might feel, you know, a little stingy because the calf can have an interesting description when it's stretching deeply. I don't know. It'd be fun to go through the parts that we stretch, like hip and shoulder and calf and hamstring, and make a description of what it feels like when it's compounded. But when you're reaching the right heel back, it could be a little bit in the air. For some of us, it might not be able to go down. So there's not much you can do with getting props under your foot to make it perfect. Some will do things like use a blanket, like the toes on top and stretch the heel back. That's to me a little severe. Some will do the opposite, where the heel would be kind of up on the blanket, and you could do these kinds of things. If it just doesn't go down, and you want to play around with how to get that to happen, maybe just practice, see what happens with the left knee bending. You know, it's kind of wired different on the second side for some of us. Could feel a little bit tense on the inside, the outside of the calf. Now the whole deal feels intense. Okay, now the left hamstring kind of has to hold ground here for your right leg to even get something out of it. So I would encourage us to just shift that blanket back if it's kind of near your back under the knee, and lower the right knee down and feel the right quadricep, the front of the thigh stretch. So your left knee aims forward. The toes on the right foot are still hooked under. Stretch the foot. Lift the chest. Just kind of move through the leg muscles. And then lean back. The left foot toes up, and your hands could be on the blocks. They could be on the floor. Right? You might go, oh, well, last time I didn't have them on anything. So you choose. Maybe you have blocks under your hands. Maybe you're fine with that. Okay, but now it might be noticeably higher in the leg, maybe a little in the calf. If you pull your toes back, you get the calf. And then alternate forward and back. So you decide if you're using a block set. But lean forward, arch, make sure to get enough block height so that you feel like you have good balance for your alternating shape of lunging, right? You reach forward with the chest and reverse lunging. Head moves down, toes up. Good. So take a few more of these strides. Alternate the lunge. Breathe. It only helps. Tilting back. Yeah, and then get a feel how the leg connection to the left side of the waist, that kind of massages into that side of the digestive tract. This is a nice way to work with our lunges too, is feel that kind of movement in the digestive area, the colon, when you move forward and back. Okay, last time, then we shift to neutral. What that means is kind of in between the two poses. And then get your bolster. Okay, cross center of the mat horizontal again, and walk your left foot. I think I'm right with this. Walk the left foot toe heel to the right. Left knee forward. And take a moment, why not? We'll do a pigeon pose. It's not on the set list, but we'll go with it. We're here. It worked out. So that left knee is angling a little bit out, but I don't get a lot out of it this direction from me. I get a little more when I lower the elbows down. So it's up to you. You don't even have to use your blocks under your arms for this one. You might enjoy having your elbows completely down, but balance this left hip. Your hands could be together, they could be apart. You could walk them over to the right side of your mat too. You can lower your elbows down or do the classic pigeon, the pigeon classic, just straightforward. Ribs expand. Now get a feel where the spine is moving kind of into the body. I mean, out, moving it away would be like rounding your back and cat pose. So move the spine a little bit in and walk your hands back. There you go. There you go. Yeah, left pigeon first. Okay. Trying to keep the tabs what we're doing here with the group. So feel when you lift up, and now when you're ready to switch, if you're spending a little more time on the left side, stay with it, that's fine. You want to give yourself a good, minute to two. And then when you come back around now, you just keep it centered. So you bring your right foot forward and in towards the bolster, left leg stretches back, shifting the sides. And use the emphasis of your spine arch to start. But you can tell that when you lower your elbows down, that trying to tug on your spine strings doesn't work, right? You have to kind of use your hip power. Breathe, and this will be nice when we get our legs up in a few moments. So we can kind of get the hips warmed up, the legs plenty, and feel the top of that back thigh. I find this one a little challenging to get my back quadricep to feel length, but I know it's happening because I have a bolster under the top of the thigh, so it's already importing that space. So some of it you just kind of let your body just release in it, and it's good. Okay, so feel where the body weight is in that right hip. Start to arch the spine one more time so you can feel that lift of your head. And then lean your body weight to your right hip. And this time we'll swing around and the left leg. And then I want you to take your blocks to the side of the mat, your feet to the front, your hip center, and you're definitely going forward on the bolster. So it's horizontal. Now, if your blanket's tucked right next to it, just kind of use your hands to guide it a little farther back. And then when you lower onto your back with your pelvis on the bolster, your knees moving in, be rather curious. Now that we moved our bolster, it was long ago when we were on our back, it was under the upper area, right, the ribs. Now when we get our sandbag, let's place it so it's on the feet, which might mean that you have to kind of shake out your sandbag and be a little rough with it to get it unbound from whatever side it holds onto. But as you put your sand on your feet, kind of stomp on it upside down. That's kind of hard to do, isn't it? You have your feet straight in that upward verticality, and the weight of the pelvis, right, is a little tilted up onto that bolster. It's natural, you've done this before, there's nothing new, but the instructional concept might be slightly tilted. But feel where the arch is and take your time to make sure this works for you to be comfortable. So not everyone will feel they want their tailbone farther forward, some will be farther back. just by being, as you move your arms down a cactus, observing these poses, that most of us will find that the farther forward our hips are on the bolster, we're much more comfortable in our back. If it's farther back for some reason, it causes some discomfort for many people in their low back. So you want to fill up that area with the bolster. And interestingly enough, more pressure is kind of relieving. So flexing the feet and letting the head and neck relax back. Yeah, definitely imitation in stillness. Vertical with the legs, flexing with the feet, centering with the breath. Inhale, strengthen the breathing muscle, the diaphragm, the primary breathing muscle. Because the hips are lifted, it has to work against gravity to start on the inhale, and then with gravity on the exhale. So it ends up working out in its favor. Now, when you start to shift any of the energy of stillness, you might find how even you are in the legs, in the calves, through the feet. Bend through the legs. Want this to be not necessarily predictable where we're aiming, but that you are warming up in the back quite a bit, right? You're trying to hydrate those tissues. So once you move the sand, okay, let's move the sand away and get a ball or a block. It doesn't matter right now. It could be either one, really. If the ball is between the knees, you have this kind of opportunity to squeeze into it, kind of the same as the block, but it responds to the movement, and then you have resistance happening right away. So try to keep that energetic of squeeze, okay? Arms are going to go more straight out than they are into bending. So you have them kind of out, straight open, like a T, okay? You are T with the arms. Okay, knees goes to the right and left, either way you want to start is fine. And as they shift from side to side, feel if you can get your waist to stretch. That might mean that you don't squeeze as intently on the ball, but as your knees go to the side, you can feel, the waist stretch, like you're moving your knees towards your arm, each side you go. Moving your head to the side is really helpful. So if I bring my knees to the left, I bring my head roll to the right. Some might not feel the same way with their neck. So you would need to find what works better for you, whether it's plain and simple back and not moving. That could be helpful. And that can be helpful for the spine in a couple ways, right? When the knees go to the side and you just keep your brain centered back, you're stretching along the spine up to the neck there versus having your head turn. It's a little more complicated, isn't it, for the neck? Okay, so do it a few more times, a few more moments, let's say, so we don't have a time how many we do in our mind, just to go with the feel. And then give yourself a few moments on the right, knees going to the right. So I want you to go to the right. Your ball or block is between the knees. Go to the right, let your feet relax together. And how about this? Let's have a block. Hopefully you got it nearby. On that right side, and the block would be below your right outer knee and lower leg, right? So the lower leg branch is going to be close to the block or basically on the block. I want you to be on the block. Right hand to the left leg, so outer left leg. Keep the left arm open to stretch the chest and shoulder. And if you want, you can turn your head to the left, or you can keep it straight back and center. Give it expanding gently. I find this one to be a tiny bit of a challenge between muscle and flexibility. It's kind of an in-between shape. It's not quite all one or the other, but it's a good core strength position we're working towards. Your head can be wherever in the moment it feels okay. Your main instruction is to hold the ball with the knees to the right. Okay, now when I slide my hand away, if you have used that position with the hand, it's not essential but helpful. And then the knees, when they go in center, can you kind of stop in the center, arms straight out, T. Lift up the feet, squeeze into the ball. That's key. Lift the feet, squeeze. Okay, now can you start going to the other side with the feet lifted? Give that a try. And then they'll probably squeeze back in towards your seat anyway. When they go to the left, that's fine. Let them be natural. In fact, I'm missing my block here. So put the block beside the left leg and then off you go. And the reason I say one block is somebody might be using a block between the knees. So unless you have 3 or 4 blocks in your class, I suppose some of you probably do. And let your head roll either to the right, but use the prop to balance your left leg on. And kind of keep that support. Breathing slow. Exhale completely. You know, as your knees squeeze in, let the arms help push down so you can come back up. And then we're going to need a couple blocks here coming up. So make sure you kind of corral them in towards your side. And then bring the knees to the chest and push the bolster. And as you slide it away, the probably upper back is very clearly down, then the mid, then the lower. So feel all those areas release. So think of the paraspinals, you know, things along the sides of the spine, we'll just call it that, is like in a heap on the ground, like you are. Okay, bring your feet to the bolster. Okay, let's try this out for pelvic floor. So my feet on the bolster, ball between. If you don't have a ball, then you'll be without that for this one, because you need both blocks under you. So you're going to push down to your feet. So you kind of shove the feet into the bolster to lift the hips up and then tuck the 2 blocks under. So I just get them side by side under the back of my pelvis. You don't want the blocks to be under your ribs at all. So if you got any ribs that you feel pushing into the blocks, you're too high up. So you want your blocks to be the mid range. If you can go the second height, would be great. And then as you let your spine kind of feel that arch, and the pelvis is centered, the legs have that support of the ball, and then bring your elbows open out to the side so they're more in cactus for just a moment with the elbows like that. Okay. All right, now we'll slide the elbows just a little bit down so it feels like it's trying to kind of work more on openness of the chest. And then the arms just release straight down from the elbows towards the foot of your mat. Try to make not too much out of these things, like just direction is good. And just enjoy breathing. Right, the shoulders are centered. I know as best as you can find centering sensations. And if the neck feels too much pull, then you slide the blanket away, because sometimes this is too much on the neck. Some of you might like the neck position with a blanket. So there's no intentional squeezing of the ball. I just have it as a marker It's a spacer for my back. So breathing with the belly, moving with the breath. You know, study a moment of hips. Just kind of notice that they're grounded on the blocks, they're supported. And then the shoulders have kind of this basic back touch down like the blades. So let the elbows press down, the hands lift up like robot arms. Okay, now be with your inner robot here. So you're pressing down with the elbows. I find that I can get my elbows to push. Okay, I got that. But then to get my shoulders to scoop under, well, they kind of have a little bit of a sliding issue. So try to get your shoulder blades like you're going one under and then the other under. So you have this robot arm thing that's, you know, a little bit overdone, I know. But when you push down into your feet, you're going to lift your hips up. You're going to sneak those blocks away from under your back so we don't even notice they're going away. And then with the elbows, you know, scooting in to the sides, lift the hips up. I know you're already trying, but just keep them up. And then slowly lower the spine down. And kind of peel away into that back flesh. Okay, now feel the hips rest. And then knees to the chest. Take a ball, put it under your left buttock. So you have to lift your hips just momentarily. And then you're going to massage around the glute media. So it's kind of more center of the left buttock and a little bit up. But you tend to just roll onto the side of the buttock anyhow on this one. So it's really just massaging around that hip. Okay. And so get a feel of that movement, a little bit side to side, like you're wagging your tail. It's a blend of movement and pressure. Maybe the word would be pressure, or the instruction is probably pressure and then movement. And that's kind of what massage is, right? It's pressure, you have some touch, and then you go into movement and glide. So this is self massage work. Okay. But take it to the other buttock and, you know, be a little free with it, meaning that you might just kind of dig into the ball with the body weight and then roll onto it. Right? So you want to keep it under the buttock, and it maybe goes a little to the side because that just feels good. The lateral part of the buttock, just that side area that can be, you don't know it's so tense until you massage it. You know, ignorance is bliss, huh? But it's good to help loosen our back muscles, to stretch our hips, our low back muscles. Okay, now as you push into your feet, slide the ball away, well, momentarily. Push the bolster to the right side of your mat, and then right leg straight down, left leg crosses over to the bolster. Tuck the ball to the sacrum. So you kind of push it in and then you roll back on it a little bit. That I think is pretty good. Or some people just like it to be kind of just light and there. Sand on the outer left hip. Get busy with sanding. If you have a couple of sand bags and you want to put them both on the left hip, that's okay. You can have one closer to the knee and then one closer to the hip itself. If you're going to use one, place it closer towards the knee. And that might feel like you get a nice kind of circulation or flush through the hip. Left arm open. Waist is centered, kind of like the navel is centered towards the ceiling. So it's a twist. And rest your head to the left. Feel it gently roll. If that's not okay with your neck, keep it centered. And study that inhale filling the lungs. And exhale, letting go. Great, so you can feel, I hope, your hip stretching here. Okay, let your head roll back to center. And then get a feel how that left leg is kind of weighted over to the bolster. Like feel it's resistance, right? There's resistance. The sand almost makes it more apparent sometimes that you have that resistance to the sensation. Okay, so it's easeful to come out. So you slide your sand away and then the ball, and just move your knees into your chest, hug them in. You could hug the knees in with them apart, or they could be closer together. If you're a little uncomfortable with holding around the knees, you can hold the back of the legs if it just feels like it hurts your knees. And rock a little side to side so there's comfort in the back arena, right? It's scooping into the back. Massage into the digestive tract when the knees go to the chest. And then get the bolster. You can use your feet to push it over. You could use like a little bit of both. Feet and hands kind of help swat it to the left side. And then you take the left leg straight-ish down, straight-ish. And then the right leg crosses to the left. Now give yourself a nice supply of just ease in the rotation, because all parts of the body, once you get the ball there, it kind of gives you an anchor. But there's so many parts that are kind of rolling left here, not just your leg, but you know, there's parts of the left leg that roll left. My left leg is no longer perfectly straight anymore, it's still bending. And then the right arm opens out, but feel where that sand goes down on the right outer leg. If it's close to the knee or if it's right up on the hip, you can define it by pushing on it a little bit. But then see if you can, you know, you might have to move your ball again. You're trying to kind of anchor this whole area from the ball to the sand. And I get it kind of pinned down. And if your right foot kind of swings a little to the left and like over the bolster, that's okay. And that may feel really helpful just to give yourself a little bit more, you know, just whatever movement that's comfy. Head turns to the right. I would have something under your head for this one. Right, a blanket would be essential. And then let your eyes relax. Breathe slow. You know, with plenty of timing for this crossover, let your head roll back to center. slide the sand, and then let's take the body to roll to the right or left, sorry, come up. And if you want to do your final pose legs up the wall, that's fine. That might be a little advanced. You know, I like that. Or you can go with bolster bench, Stonehenge here. So I got a couple blocks. I've got my bolster on top. It's been a while since we did this exact one. And then I got my blanket on top of the bolster. And then my sand can go on my shins after my feet go up. Your sand could go on your ribs. Just know if you put on your shins that I won't be there to take it off. So that could be a little limiting, right? If you don't want to pull yourself back with the sand here, but it also can be liberating, right, for your core muscles. So when you lower back your head, be careful though that your hips are comfy, because you've been kind of rousing them up in the last couple poses there. So feel that the spine is, you know, in a pretty plain position. It's in a plane of comfort, and the head is on a blanket. You might roll it up a little bit at the neck, and you might try that and decide how it works, or maybe it's a little bit odd. So you can work with that opportunity for the blanket under your head to help stretch gently through the neck. And then the hands could rest on your heart and your abdomen. They could rest just beside you, shoulders back. And finding where you connect to in the spine, the natural arch of the back, right? From the tailbone pressing gently, from the movement through the spine, and then the lift of the breath internally. Fill the lungs. Exhale. Letting go. Inhale deeply. Exhale, empty. Now alternating. And feel how the abdomen expands and releases back towards the floor of the spine. Let your eyes rest. If you have them open, you might do several blinks with your eye muscles and then just let it relax. Returning the body to a place of balance and peace. Now what's interesting here is that the legs are up, and so that positioning makes it comfortable for our backs, right? So it puts a little bit of weight in our back, which actually makes it grounding and kind of rooting for the spine. We don't get that when we sit up and stand and walk. It's not the same kind of calibration in our back muscles as it is when we put our legs up, whether they're the wall or on a couch or a chair or a bolster. It's just a good homework is to get your legs up, just so the back can have an even attempt at letting gravity have you. Okay. Even if you don't practice it, maybe you have a bolster anyway, and if you're lying in bed just a few minutes before, you can put your bolster under your legs, and that can be helpful too. So let's take a position where we have our spine still pretty heavily rooted here. And then when you bring your knees into your chest, if you got a sandbag, it's going to be a little work out there just to assist the sand away, or maybe you kind of shed it away. Knees into chest, and feel the knees a little closer than they were last time, maybe when you had your knees to your chest. And then once they kind of draw in together, feel how that spine on each side lengthens. You can hold the knees, you can hold the back of the legs. Keep it real clear that your intention in mind is to that spine, rather than what it looks like. It's like my spine. It's my spine. Roll to the side, no one else will take it. Come on up to sitting. Take a mini moment for the collective here to sit on a blanket and let the legs have a crossing and the hands have a connection folding in towards the heart. Brain bows and surrenders to the heart center. Okay, let's unite our breath. Feel the body receiving the practice. And wellness. Exhale, bowing into your heart.